XYZ Modeling and Graphics, and today we're going to be taking a look at month number 14, issue number 55, and it will just be issue number 55 today due to the amount of time that it took me to put this together. And I really don't want these videos to run much longer than 14 minutes a piece, so let's go ahead and get started. As usual, we're going to be opening up our packaging and inventorying our pieces, of course, checking for damage or missing items. D'Agostini has been pretty good so far. Everything has been looking really good. No major issues to speak of. And here we are with our detail pieces for the engine. Just be careful when you open up that package, because sometimes static electricity will force some of these pieces to stick to the lid, and when you pull it off they can easily attach themselves and get lost, so just be aware of that. So we're not really getting into anything new. Just like the last video, we're completing the upper port wing, and of course the engine is the component that we're dealing with on this issue. But I am very much looking forward to getting through this wing so we can start getting into some uncharted territory, including the painting, which I promise is coming. I know we've got a few comments to talk about today, and speaking of the painting, Martin Futter out there, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, has made it clear to me that he's looking forward to that painting process, and Martin, so am I really am. So but we got to get through these wings first before I can start dealing with that. But in the meantime, I want to make sure I keep a steady pace on this build, make sure I'm consistent with how I'm putting it together. Now you'll notice that I do like to use CA glue, which brings me to my next comment. There was a gentleman with the initials P40F20, P40F20. And, you know, I appreciate Jason out there kind of speaking up for me. Jason, you know, made it clear to him that it is my preference to use CA glue. And I am aware, as he says, that that glue isn't necessary, or at least that is what D'Agostini would have you believe. Now, I've run into problems along the way where certain parts weren't fitting tightly enough that if I didn't have CA glue, they wouldn't have stayed in place. Now, that's not true for all of them, and I've actually seen an improvement as we've gone along in this process. But I assure you that over time, if you do not use CA glue for some of these, especially with this part right here where these friction fit pieces that go on the exterior of the part, or the detail of the model, will eventually fall apart, get bumped, or something that's going to easily knock it out of place. And my goal here is to prevent that from happening. Just as an example, I purchased a AT-AT walker a couple years ago, and it was a snap together model, and actually very well detailed. I have it on display downstairs. But I didn't use any CA glue to put it together. I was like, great, you know, this is going to be an easy build. I don't have to worry about that. Just make sure the parts are clean and push the pieces together. And I actually have this thing in a glass display, or a plexiglass display, and one of the pieces that I put together did manage to come apart. And so when I use CA glue, when I suggest it, it's just because, just from personal experience, I know that can happen through no fault of my own. I mean, it's just going to happen. So if you want to avoid that, then, you know, go ahead and use CA glue. But there's no rule here. I mean, it's your model. You can build it however you want. the way I'm doing it is merely a suggestion, and it's the way I like to do it. So you can choose to do it however you want. It's okay with me. So, taking a look at what we're doing here, I am slowly putting this part together with the details. I apologize for the camera angle again. I know I'm blocking some of the view of how I'm working on this, but I am using a little bit of CA glue to make sure these pieces stay in place. And instead of sorting them out like I have with other pieces, I am just pulling them directly from the container. We've done this enough times now that that's probably the best approach. At least it is for me, to keep things organized and moving forward smoothly. Another reason is that there's enough of a difference in these parts visually to make it easy to identify the individual parts that are being called out here versus the smaller ones that we'll be dealing with here in the next few issues. And the parts I'm referring to are in the next month's issues, month number 15, which I do have, and I am ready to get going on that. I just have to create the next video. I did build out the issue 56. I just gotta get it in a format to where it's presentable for you fine folks. So, as you can see, this is very familiar territory, but that's alright. I like to take these opportunities of repetitiveness here to talk about other things. I didn't get a whole lot of comments this time around for my last video, but there is one last one here from a gentleman named Larry Goodnight. Hello, Larry. I hope you're watching. Larry says he's running about a month behind me, which is good because that gives him a heads up on what's coming. I appreciate that. I did the same thing with the Millennium Falcon. There was a few folks out there that were ahead of me in that, and it was nice to be able to check out their videos and see what was coming and see what kind of problems that they ran into, or little tips and tricks on how to deal with some little pitfalls that may pop up here and there. But Larry says, mahalo, Pat. I gotta tell you, Larry, I'm not a big fan of the name Pat. That goes back to the old Saturday Night Live days where they had a character named Pat who was this androgynous. They couldn't tell if he was male or female, and ever since then anybody's ever called me Pat, I'm like, my name is not Pat. It's either Patrick or you can call me Rick. So, but anyway, mahalo. So I haven't heard anyone use that word that didn't live in Hawaii, so maybe you are from Hawaii. My wife and I were just down there in Maui over Thanksgiving, and absolutely beautiful. I love Hawaii, and if you're from Hawaii, I'm extremely jealous. Yeah, we'd like to take as many vacations there as we can possibly afford. I live in Alaska, and we've been suffering -0 or below zero temperatures for the past month, and I really do miss those tropical breezes and being able to walk around in shorts versus 3 layers of clothing, which I have to do now. So thanks, Larry, for watching. You mentioned too that you had enough parts left over for an extra R2 and that you would be painting that one a little bit differently. I'm curious as to how you ended up with more than enough parts to build a second R2. So if you feel like it, maybe respond in the comments section, and we'll have a little conversation about that. Wouldn't mind getting my hands on the second one. I wouldn't. I suppose we could just ask, or I could call D'Agostini and ask him to send me another kit. You know, the first few issues that contain all those pieces. But anyway, I'd also like to know if you plan on keeping the red 5 scheme or if you plan on painting the entire ship a different color as well. So anyway, let's see here. We're still working on the detail. That's pretty much all we're doing on this issue, is just completing the detail portion of the outer engine. And it's a slow process. I'm taking my time with it. I'm trying to be as exacting as possible, not to use too much CA glue, just enough to keep these pieces firmly in place. I do admit it's not very exciting, but it is a necessary evil for the build of this model. So thanks for suffering with me here. Now, I do want to encourage everybody to comment, good or bad. It's all right. Just be respectful. I'll be respectful to you if you're respectful to me. But yeah, I think this is a good way to interact with the viewers. If you're interested, I will definitely include you in the commentary. And I do look forward to hearing about everyone's ideas, what direction they're going to go, if they're going to keep the red 5 scheme or if they're going to try for a different ship that may already be canon, or come up with your own designs. It'd be really, really interesting. And when the project is said and done, I hope we could figure out a way to share our end results, because I'm sure you guys have your own great ideas for how you'd like your ship to be displayed and how you're going to paint it. It's a lot of fun, and I appreciate every one of you for sticking with me with this build process. So keep those comments a-coming. I really look forward to them. So we're getting pretty close to the end here of this issue. Got a few more final pieces to attach. The piping on the exterior portion of this engine is very cool to me. Now, I have to be aware that when I do use CA glue, that I'm not creating too much of a build-up. But it almost works in this situation, even if there is a little bit, because when you weather a ship like this, it helps to actually have a little bit of build-up there. It creates the illusion of age and dirt accumulation and things like that. So it actually lends to the illusion of an aged component or part. But still, I want to make sure I'm only using just enough to keep that part in place, which is the main goal here. And that wraps it up. Thanks for sticking with me with issue number 55. We'll be taking a look at issue 56 very shortly.